Ice cream or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Bitter or sweet?
Bitter.
Black or white?
White.
Italian, Thai?
Thai.
All his choices are absolutely unlike mine. So as you can see, consumer tastes are evolving at a lightning speed, right? And market shifting overnight. Today, the guest that we have, Arun, can give us a master class in leadership, grit, and about reading consumers' minds. And it's not about adapting, but anticipating. Let me welcome Ms. Geetika Mehta, who's the MD of NIVEA India, who talks about how innovation starts at the street, and inclusion from the top, and leadership has to be about listening. Welcome to the podcast, Geetika. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me over. I'm doing well, thank you.
Geetika, you're from Delhi. You did your graduation from Sri Ram College of Commerce and then went to IIM Ahmedabad and then marketing, right? And went into consumer goods. So was that an informed choice?
Yes, was a very informed choice. Interesting anecdote there. Like any good mother, like any good child, I called my mom and I said, Mom, where should I join? I'm actually a dual major in finance and marketing sales. So therefore, I had offers from Citibank, Standard Chartered, ICICI, HUL, PNG. And she said, whatever you do, don't do sales because sales is not for women. And that is therefore precisely the thing that I went ahead and joined. So where is HUL? And I'll sign off right now. Of course, now she says she's a child psychologist and reverse whatever, but well, we don't know. And that's how I actually joined Unilever.
What is that one thing that you think you learned in sales that carried forward to all the years that you've had such success?
So I think I learned leadership in sales. That was the first stint. I was 20 something. And there were people in Unilever there in sales who had more years in Unilever than my age, than my life on the planet. And therefore, everything I really learned was from them. But I think the one I would call out is trust. Just know that before that, it's all you yourself have to succeed in life. It's you. And then to get work through a team of people that you are leading. So to trust them implicitly and then to carry them along with you, I think I learned when I was in sales.
Is it, do you have to have certain qualities to be in sales? Or being in sales teaches you a few qualities? What's your perspective on that? Like resilience.
I think you have to be empathetic to be in sales and any other leadership position, but more in sales because, like I said, first sales role, and you have about 100 people that you're leading indirectly or directly. So therefore, that ability to be able to listen to really what they're saying is important. And then, yes, you do build resilience. I built courage.
And then from sales, as you moved, was this serendipity or were you making informed choices about, therefore, what next you wanted to do?
I would love for it to be like I had planned it all out. It isn't true at all. And actually, in fact, now I tell people not to plan it like that, right? What you should plan for is to have a stellar stint. Yeah, ensure that during your stint, you're giving your best, you're really building your own skills, you're giving back to the organization. That is important. After that, your next stint will figure itself out. So there was a point in time when I had done this role for like a million years. It felt like that. And I could do it bound, gagged, blindfolded. And then when I asked for the role, it was like, I want to do something different because I am not growing. B, you don't let anybody else grow. When you reach that zone of saturation, actually before that, you must try and say, let me get out of my comfort zone. Like, let me do something different. Let me expand my own skill set. Let me feel slightly out of depth.
And how do you know that you've actually hit that? Like, we call this concept within our organization S-curves. We say, hey, you got to start a new S-curve. But how do you know that you've actually reached that inflection point in your S-curve?
So it is, and I am a runner. You know when you're at this rhythm and you're like, you can push yourself more. You're too comfortable is really when you should opt for something and ask for either more projects if you're in the same role or an absolutely different kind of landscape to paint on.
Listening to consumers, listening to employees, and understanding the evolution of your organization over your many years of leadership, how have you approached leading your teams?
So somewhere I read, and I think that stuck with me, a CEO is Chief Energy Officer. Yeah, so it isn't really about How are you driving energy in the organization? Are you putting them, because they're such smart people, frankly, in every organization. Yeah, if you're able to galvanize their energies towards the end, it's stellar. So I think it's really, this is important for us because, like I said, we don't drive. I don't do much work myself, but it is the team that really needs to do the work, and we need to help resolve the issues that come for them.
Apoorva, so this, you were OMP, the managing principal of one of our largest offices, the Delhi office. What she's saying probably resonates with you, right?
I think it absolutely resonates because I think you'll read the minds and the pulse of the people and then you're acting according to what they would like. Because I also believe, just like you said, the age gap, also what the employees are looking for versus what we have experienced in our times could be just so different. But I also wanted to quote and ask Geetika something related to listening. I think I read your quote saying merely listening is not enough and acting upon it. So what are the things that, tell us a little bit more about this being an agent of change, both, in the industry as well as within the organization.
Okay. And maybe this one I will refer to an earlier stint when I was with Hershey. So we had no women in the factory in Hershey, right? So and you say that, of course, is hard. It's in, Mandideep, which is Madhya Pradesh, not exactly safest. So you listen, and then how are you able to become that agent of change? And then we really started a concerted program of how could we move that needle. And within that year, we moved from 0 to 100 women on the factory floor. Yeah, and it was simple things like listening to what are their concerns, safety being one. Maybe we arrange a bus from their village, getting to speak to the village elders to make them know that they're coming to this reputed organization, getting to speak to the men in the factory to make them comfortable, and so it is simple things, but therefore, are you converting the mere act of listening into something more concrete, which will then kind of go back to saying you've done something, you felt like you've been kind of left a legacy there.
I think, but at the root of it, you did it because there's value in it to the organization. It's not just for the women in the villages that are surrounding. And I think, so were you able to track that and then
Of
demonstrate?
Course, absolutely. So, well, women are best at everything. But that apart, they have nimbler fingers, right? So in packaging, it was better for us, yeah? They are maybe more attention to detail comes a little bit more naturally to them. Like I said, it's not for the villagers. It is really to ensure your productivity goes up. And especially here in the office, for example, we do have, practically a gender-balanced organization. Why? Because you're also selling to women, and men. Frankly, NIVEA men range as well exists. And therefore, you have to have that voice in the room to be able to do justice to the products that you're selling.
And I think you made a point to include men. Men and women can be allies and in this sort of agent of change. Can you talk to the role of men in enabling, like for example, that same factory floor example, can't just be you. You have, especially if you're the only woman in the frame, but you want to create the change, you needed others. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think, so firstly, fully aligned to saying it needs to have, men and women need to be the agent for change because we cannot do it alone. So I think it is important. I actually find most men we speak to now are in that frame of mind. Yeah, I don't think of course we have to continue the journey, and it's in our slightly more upscale, upmarket, urban world, potentially men are more evolved, but they are part of the narrative.
In fact, I would say, Arun, that personally as well, another role that I think men have also played as allies and champions and mentors. And I think many of my, yourself included as my champion, but there are many others who I've worked with who've knowingly, unknowingly, and definitely helped, enabled me and empowered me in, doing different things. Any such examples in your life about men as allies and, in your journey?
For sure. So absolutely, I have had brilliant mentors, both men and women, over the last, more than 20 years. So there was a time when I was, like I said, felt like I was in my comfort zone. I was doing a lot of consumer marketing, and I wanted to move into a general manager position. And I called up my mentor and I said, it's a little bit like same levels. And somewhere you're also competitive, right? You want like a sense of having made progress. But I'm learning new skills. I don't have a badge of a promotion, but I feel like I will stretch and, grow. And he said, knowing you, and yeah, absolutely do that. Otherwise you will kind of vegetate here. Absolutely do that. And the word he used was take a step back to move forward. And And that is something I did. And I think I am here now because of that decision I took, because otherwise I may still have been only in the world of pristine marketing.
What are some good qualities of, especially for men, if you had advice to give to men, what are some good qualities of being a good mentor?
Wear colorful shirts like Arun.
This is an inside joke here. This is as colorful
Yeah,
as I get.
I was just about to say, like, okay. Yeah, no, I think for me that listening empathy that I spoke about, it's for men and women as great mentors. You should be able to sense the concern that the other person has. It's, of course, you have to listen carefully to what they're saying, but also to what they're not saying. What is it that is holding them back? And then use your experience over whatever years to give that slightly nuanced advice. It's not just the here and now, it's the long-term visionary view.
One question I had is, what is that one bold move that you thought you weren't like, you were hesitating to take, but now that you look back at it and saying, wow, I did this, and it really paid off? And how did you get the courage for it as well?
The bold move of moving from pure marketing into general management, and actually the bolder move of becoming managing director, I think it was tough. I will not deny it.
I was fairly convinced you were going to say your mom's reverse psychology. That's the boldest move. But maybe in hindsight, it's probably a bold move
that
too.
is for my mom, maybe the But yeah, she's really been an inspiration. My father passed away, I was fairly young, 12 years old. So she was a teacher, then she kind of educated herself. She finally became a principal in Ramjas in Delhi. And, two kids she kind of raised. So I think my epitome of determination and dedication would be my mother.
By the way, that's another thing you share in common with Apoorva. Her mother was also
the principal for Dalit Ram College, yes.
So,
Arun, what about your bold move beyond agreeing to do this podcast?
I wouldn't even characterize this as a bold move. But, I think moving from where it's not just where you're comfortable, where the organization is not comfortable. I think that requires some level. So if I look back, I would say always stepping into areas of complete uncertainty for the organization has been and I've done that a few times, and it's not always paid off, but it's okay. As long as you have fun in the job and you're doing what so aspirations. I want to talk a little bit about aspirations. So looking forward, as you think about your aspirations, what are some things that you keep in mind as a guide rule? I know that you talked about the contemporary feeling, okay, I'm comfortable, let me think about the next one. But let's say another 20 years down the line, at some point, you look back, what would you have liked to have done? And how does that translate to your aspirations of today?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I don't necessarily plot out a career trajectory, but I think it has surely moved from individual kind of aspirations, then it became team aspirations. And I think there is now a little bit of an itch of beyond just the immediate circle, and how can you create impact which will then create a ripple effect. I think so somewhere I don't have a clear path to it, but it is no longer on saying as long as I'm on my S-curve. It's like, how can we take organizations forward? How can we take, the entire country forward on a certain curve? And, and I don't want to make it seem larger than it is, but in whatever way I can.
A lot of young girls sometimes look at sitting early at 20 saying that, I don't think I can do what you're doing. Yeah. Okay? And it does take a muscle. We've all been through it, and we realize that we've got the ecosystem around us, etc. What will be your, anecdotes from your own life to say, when you look back at 20, what will be your own advice to yourself?
So that was my advice actually, maybe in my 30s, but I actually had a printout in my, at that time I didn't have a cabin, so in my cubicle said, be more bold. And I was telling this to some women the other day, and they were like, you're already like, oh my God. And maybe just reading it every day made me more bold. What would be my advice is, of course, be more bold, but also believe in yourself. I think sometimes we look to others, and the reason they're not confident is like they're not seeing enough role models, and that that 4 minute mile, yeah. So anyway, I think I just believe in yourself would be for me the big one.
I'm very curious about the runner in you. Okay, I gotta ask you a few questions on that. When you think of a marathon,
Yes.
how do you made a comment about your mind drifting to other thoughts.
Yeah.
So do you believe as a runner?
So I've often said that life is not a race, it's a marathon. Yeah? And I think there are going to be ebbs and flows. There will be times when you're too tired or cramping, and it's okay to take a break. I mean, I'm trying to draw the parallel to my life. I had 2 boys, and I took nice long 6-month maternity breaks for both of them. And at one point, my boss was like, get off your meals. But it was important because I wanted to be there for them equally. So yes, it is very similar. I do run on the treadmill. I used to, when we were staying at Cuff Parade, run on the lovely Marine Drive, which was many years ago. Now I run on the treadmill. I actually use it as me time. So yes, I let my thoughts wander. That's actually a time when I'm thinking. So it is brilliant, actually, when I run on the, because I put a certain speed. Today morning, 10 kilometers per hour, 30 minutes. So I do my 5 kilometers. And I was thinking of what I will say today. So I think
It worked.
Yeah, well, thank you. So yes, I do believe you need that space where the action, I don't focus on this. It's just you're letting your mind drift. But you know that you're on a certain path of 5 kilometers. So that is at the back of my mind, but I'm doing and thinking other things.
Fantastic. I think I just want to say this has been an amazing conversation. I walked away with several nuggets. First is, I think one of the primary role of a leader is to bring energy into the organization. And I think from this conversation, of course, clearly you've brought energy to us and, of course, to our listeners as well, too. I think the second point is this notion of men and women need to own this notion of agent of change. And we all have to take responsibility in this. And I think that's very, very important. The third thing is, I think this notion of empathy can take on different, empathy for me to have empathy as far as who you are and your role. Empathy, but for yourself, I think, which was much more important for me listening to you. Have the patience to develop your journey. Be empathetic towards yourself. You're in different stages. And, bring your best intellect and do hard work. But that's not a guarantee of success. They are probably necessary conditions. But don't be harsh on yourself just because it didn't lead to success. There's still things to be learned. So thank you so much for joining us today and for this really engaging conversation.
Thank you so much. And I actually would be remiss if I didn't tell about how my husband is the biggest ally and the reason I am where I am. My husband and both my boys, have been so supportive, because obviously this does come at a certain amount of cost to the personal time. But, so men need to be allies, absolutely, for women to get ahead in life.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.